Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our teen engagement panel. If you're on the far wings, can I ask you to do something really brave, which is to come a little closer. Yes, if you're on the far wings, I'm asking you to be brave. Danielle, you work with teens. I know you know what this is like. Come up, snuggle up, as Samantha said earlier. Wonderful. Now I can see all of your shining, happy faces this morning. First, I want you to raise your hand if you had a meaningful Jewish youth experience when you were a kid. All right, everybody look around the room. That's a lot of hands. Keep that hand up if it was a summer camp. Raise your hand if you went to summer camp. Either a Jewish summer camp or a camp for Jews. Yeah. Raise your hand if you did youth group, either a synagogue or a pluralistic movement. And lastly, I want you to raise your hand if you remember a particular youth professional who had an impact on your life. Maybe it was a camp counselor, maybe it was a youth group advisor. I bet you can picture that face right now and remember that interaction that told you, this person cares about me and my Jewish identity, and helped you grow, and probably helped get you to this room that we're in right now. So what you're about to experience is a few really wonderful Jewish youth professionals who are helping touch lives just like your life was once touched, that helped propel you on this path. This is a group of people who are turning out the next generation of Jewish leaders and Jewish professionals and encouraging youth movements and youth engagement in all sorts of different spheres. I'm very, very excited to share this panel with these wonderful people. My name is Rabbi Andrew Turkel. I run a program called Student to Student that is now part of Jewish Federations North America. Yeah, I see a few nods of recognition. Go Student to Student. It started in St. Louis, is now part of Jewish Federations North America. We train Jewish teens to be leaders and ambassadors and public speakers and share their Jewish identity. I'll talk more about it a little bit later. But first I want to welcome a good friend, a leader in the field, a wonderful presenter who we have had the pleasure and privilege of working with here at Student to Student, and I'm glad that you all get to learn with her too. Dr. Samantha Vinokur-Meinrath is a lifelong Jewish educator and learner, an expert on Jewish teens, Gen Z, experiential education, Israel and questions of Jewish identity. She is the Senior Director of Knowledge, Ideas, and Learning at the Jewish Education Project. She teaches at Gratz College and writes and has her second book out now, which is #Antisemitism. #Antisemitism, if you're looking for a real uplifting read at night before you go to bed, it is the one to get. But today you're going to hear all kinds of great, inspiring stories, and Samantha has done really innovative and groundbreaking research on who teens are today, what Jewish teens are looking for, interested in, concerned about, and that's going to really set the stage for our conversation afterwards. So it is my great pleasure and privilege to invite up Samantha Vinokur-Meinrath.
Thank you, Andrew. I promise we keep the anti-Semitism fun. Just gonna say. So good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for being here and for prioritizing this conversation. As Andrew said, I'm Samantha, and while I could tell you even more impressive sounding things about myself in my bio, for the purposes of this session, I want to put that aside and to tell you that once upon a time, I was an awkward, very nerdy high schooler who found a home for myself within the Jewish community. Like so many, and seeing all the hands, I grew up in a public school family in my face on Long Island, in a space that had a lot of Jews, but where being a Jew who cared about it made me a deep outlier. But luckily for me, I was a teen when the landscape for Jewish teen education was thriving. I'm here today as a product, as Andrew and I did not rehearse that, but of USY, of Right On for Israel, of the Pros Door School, and of the youth directors and professionals who invested in me and created spaces where I felt seen and ultimately was able to thrive. So when I was asked to approach a conversation about the challenges and opportunities facing today's teens, especially for those of us who care about them in all of these different ways, I do it with the true belief, as some here have heard me say before, that working with teens, whether it's your profession, your family, is sacred and holy work. We have a trust and a responsibility because when we say that we are educating the next generation, we are effectively holding and creating the spaces when some of the most formative events that shape a young person's life are occurring, when their identities are being formed, and in a world that is so full of transition and polarization, and I don't know if this is a real word, but I'm going with ever-changingness, it's so much more critical than truly ever before. So thank you all for whatever brought you to this space, for what you're doing with today's young people. So first I get to talk, we're doing a funnel. I'm gonna talk about teens and spirituality, and then Jewish teens. And then at some point I'll probably talk about anti-Semitism, and then you get to hear from everybody else, which will be that much better. So today's teen was born sometime between 2006 and 2012. The majority of them fall into the demographic category of Generation Z, but the youngest teens and all of our rising tweens are part of Gen Alpha. In our time together, we're going to unpack a few of the differences between them, particularly what they care about and how we can understand our role in partnering with today's young people to move them from where they are, meet them where they are, and push towards where we want them and our community to be. Now, with the caveat, because I'm sure in the Q&A section it'll come up, I know a teen who's different than that. Absolutely you do. Everyone has someone who's coming to mind when we think about today's teen, but for the moment I'm going to speak in a few broad strokes. Today's teen has been shaped by having an external locus of control. What that means is that the frame of identity and their mindset is being shaped by things that have happened to them rather than by agency that they have had in impacting their lives and the world around them. Largely, this is a byproduct of COVID-19. So if we think about the disruption of the pandemic, it made all of us, presumably to varying degrees, feel somehow powerless to the world around us. Rules that came up that told us to behave differently than felt natural or that perhaps we had ever done before. Certainly, I had ever done before. So for our teens, they experienced what it means to basically have their world shift into things happen to me, not that I get to make decisions. This happened at very formative years for them in particular, in their tween phase, maybe in early teens, or even before they were in that developmental stage, depending upon where they were, pre-adolescence or adolescence. That has shaped them in certain ways, because when you feel powerless, then there becomes a sense of detachment. If I can't do anything about this monolith coming at me, do I still keep trying, or am I someone who's going to say, okay, things happen and I'm just going to roll with it? What does it mean and how does it impact us psychologically when that locus of control is something that we don't feel is within us? They're coming of age, of course, with the internet. And the best verbiage I found was, there is a fear of being cringe. I did not know those words. But a fear of being cringe is essentially a fear of standing out too much and therefore being publicly humiliated because the internet is faceless, and things that happen online, I hope remains true, we would never do or say out loud. At the same time, they love the internet, and they find all of the resources, they are using them, they are able to have platforms earlier and earlier to shape the world around them and to reclaim some of that control because they're able to curate a space that's fully mine, fully theirs, in the palm of their hands. The internet has caused this phenomenon of trying to create artificial community. We are seeking and searching for community, all of us, but especially an adolescent is seeking meaning, making, and belonging. And because of that, there's a greater pressure than ever before to identify right now. Not to necessarily stay in the searching and in the messy middle, but to find what your community is going to be and go all in on it. For millennials, someone called it millennial hobby energy, and for Gen Z, it's millennial micro community, Gen Z micro community energy of I want to figure out what's mine and claim it and hold it so close because I want a space that I can own. Media literacy is up, which is great, but also the ability to be influenced is up as well. We hold both of those things together. There's a sense of I am being marketed to all the time. And this especially comes with social media because there's not necessarily a difference between a picture from a friend and a picture that's asking me to do something, or especially with Gen Alpha, a video that's asking me to do something, because it's all about the videos. They're holding so much. So many pressures, so many realities that those of us who care about them either don't understand, or even if we do understand, we certainly did not live it in our own formative years of adolescence. So now, who is today's teen who is searching for meaning? According to our colleagues from Springtide, which collects data on faith and identity and meaning making and belief from 13 to 25-year-olds, young people today continue to experience epidemic levels of loneliness. In their data on belonging, it indicates that 1 in 3 of young people feel completely alone much of the time. Nearly 40% of them have no one to talk to and feel left out, and 45% feel as though no one understands them. There's a belongingness process, and everyone who raised their hand earlier, I hope can see the impact that my colleagues are going to speak about in the world of Jewish education, because there's bright spots. I've gotten dark very quickly, and don't worry, it's going to be okay. So I want everyone to think about the Jewish spaces where you feel comfortable, and I'm going to take us through the belongingness process. I am noticed. First step of belonging, I'm noticed. I was invited into a relationship. I was acknowledged. I was seen. Somebody greeted me. I was invited, maybe. The second one is I am named. Literally, someone knows my name, but also I personally would be missed if I wasn't here. Not just that I'm part of a crowd or a number, but I belong here because someone would notice if I, Samantha, wasn't here. And the third one is I am known. To be known is a dimension of unreserved acceptance. I am known as myself, I am welcome, and there I belong. So when I think about today's Jewish teen, I'm thinking about all of the opportunities that they have to belong because of all of the opportunities that my colleagues are going to speak about, because of the work that so many in this room are doing, and because it's so necessary that we create those belonging spaces. Because an American Jewish teen faces a dual burden. All of the universal challenges of adolescence, all of the extra challenges of this moment that I just laid out, and the unique pressures that arise from being Jewish. I'm coming with my New York lens, so please, someone can also tell me that we knew this well before 2 years ago. I'm ready. But over the last 2 years, the collective Jewish people, and especially our young people, have transformed from being a minority to having a minoritized identity. A minority is a question of numbers, and I cannot do math, but I can count enough to say I know that Jews were a minority and continue to be a minority in the United States, in the world, in New York, all of the places and spaces. A minoritized identity comes when you make your decisions and your choices based on the vulnerability of being part of a minority group. And for so many of us, our Jewish choices have transformed, and we could say over the last 2 years, we could say it was happening before. The book #2020 Antisemitism did come out in 2022, so some of us were clearly talking about it before. We've developed a minoritized identity where our minority identity makes us vulnerable, and our young people are grappling with, what does that mean? How do I make Jewish choices when I'm vulnerable? And none of us want to be having those conversations. If I were here to officially talk about anti-Semitism, what I would say is I'm a reluctant expert because nobody who's not a historian wants to be good at anti-Semitism education. We were never supposed to be. We don't want this burden, we don't want this responsibility, and yet we have it, and our young people especially are making those choices. We want to be talking about Jewish thriving. Anyone here who works with teens, my colleagues, myself, we did it because of Jewish joy, Jewish pride. We want to instill Jewish confidence in our young people. Nobody gets into this work because we want to figure out how do we identify how ancient manifestations of modern anti-Semitism come into the modern world. Nobody steps into Jewish education because the lesson that they are so excited to impart is about anti-Semitic stereotypes. But we have that responsibility now because our young people need our support and our help with it. For years, many of us have been talking about the power of Jewish life to bring that meaning that our young people are looking for, that value add and that belongingness to the lives of our young people. In the Jewish Education Project's landmark Generation Now study on Jewish Gen Z, we said that Jewish wisdom, education, and engagement has the capacity to empower Jews to thrive in this world by giving Jews the capacity to be the best versions of themselves, connecting Jews to things that matter in their lives, and providing Jews with the tools to bring about a more equitable and just world. And this continues to be felt both for parents and for the young people themselves. In our forthcoming Gen Alpha study, when asked how important various items are regarding Jewish educational objectives for their children, this is for 9 to 14-year-old, the parents of 9 to 14-year-olds, the parents said, number 1, to feel part of the Jewish people. Number 2, to be in an environment that is welcoming to Jews. And number 3 is to develop a sense of Jewish pride. And in new data that comes from my colleagues at Root One, we have heard from teens who participated in peer Israel immersive experiences. And we see that the Israel trip, in addition to all of the impact that it has regarding feelings of Jewish peoplehood and pride, also has a strong social emotional impact on areas related to college and therefore life preparedness, something that a lot of us are thinking about. Teens who come back from Route 1 trips have gained, self-reported, they've gained confidence to navigate new social situations, they've boosted a sense of independence and self-reliance, they've improved their practical skills for things like problem solving and navigating new environments, and we know most of all that in a world of uncomfortable or potentially unsafe spaces, Jewish spaces must at once be safe, and yet can provide the room for productive discomfort that's needed for that growth. We are here to provide belongingness. We're also here to push. And I think holding that dichotomy is what helps us to help our young people to not only survive, succeed, but ultimately get to that thriving space. The last point that I want to make is about Jewish pride. So many of us have spent time in the last 2 years thinking about what does it mean to develop proud, confident young people when we most need it, and yet when it can feel so elusive, when there are questions of how can I be proud to be Jewish when, and I'm sure if I leave that as a hanging sentence, everyone can think of something that fills in, how can I be proud to be Jewish when? But I'm going to go back to my original point of an external locus of control. What I strive for when it comes to our Jewish young people today is a core sense of self that not is unchangeable, but that is unbreakable, that is unshakable. We're all on our lifelong Jewish journeys and life journeys. We're growing, we're changing, it's beautiful. We should be transforming, especially in those formative years of adolescence. And how do we ensure that there is a confident core that is unshakable when it comes to our young people? We at the Jewish Education Project have provided the definition of Jewish pride as the ability to live with Jewish confidence stemming from a connection to Judaism that adds value and meaning to one's life. My colleagues are going to talk about all the ways that they are doing that and working towards that, and we are all truly honored to partner with everyone in the room, everyone who considers yourselves a stakeholder in this work towards those shared ends. So I want to share in closing of this portion my wishes for all of our young people, and what I believe we're all wishing. The first is that they will be safe. We can talk about Maslow's hierarchy, we could talk about just like vibes and gut instincts. Number one, I wish that they will all be safe as the totality of who they are, Jewish and otherwise. I wish that they will all have a space where they can feel normal. Whatever normal is, they feel like they are part of, they're not other, they're not different, they can just fit in and have comfort. And the third wish is that they will be exceptional. Because so many of our young people are exceptional, it is the charge that we give to them, we talk about it constantly, and every one of them deserves that space and that opportunity. So with that, we get to talk about all those spaces and opportunities, and it's my pleasure to invite up my three colleagues, come, yes, to join me in a conversation about all of the above. So everyone has in the app a really extensive bio. I want to hear from you and say less about you, so I'm going to give the on one foots. So we have Brett Lebarsky. Yes, okay. Who serves as the Director of Jewish Communal Life at Combined Jewish Philanthropies in Greater Boston. We have, okay, I didn't look to see who was sitting where, Devorah Simon. who is the National Director of the Jewish Student Union, a project of the Orthodox Union, and is based in Baltimore. And as he self-introduced, we have Rabbi Andrew Turkel, who is the who is the Executive Director of Student to Student at Jewish Federations of North America, and is based in St. Louis. Okay, so welcome everyone. Now my notes are a little bit out of order, but it's going to be great. And I actually want to start with a question for everyone, which is, I'm going to go back to the title of our conversation, then I'll come sit with you, to share something that you find to be a particular opportunity right now. Particular opportunity in your work or for your young people, because I think I bummed them all out, so we need to get to the good stuff. Share an opportunity.
Hi, everyone. I believe that we are in a moment right now that the Jewish community is uniquely prepared for. We have spaces and places and moments where we can help our teens feel seen, feel heard, feel cared for, and feel like they are empowered to be the change that they would like to see in their world around them, and to build deeper, meaningful relationships with one another and with their own Jewish identities.
It works, I guess. Just to add on to that, not only do we have the spaces to be able to provide that, but we are also seeing a unique moment in time. Just to share from the JSU end, we had, since October 7th, we have had about 50% more requests for new clubs and new programs, in addition to, in our existing programs, a surge in attendance. So we're seeing a unique opportunity to engage. Thankfully, we do have those spaces, and we're trying to meet that moment of this incredible surge in interest and engagement requests.
Laura, can I just interrupt for a minute? For anyone who might not be familiar, can you tell us about who the population is that JSU is serving and how it works?
I thought that was your first question, actually.
I've gone rogue.
Okay. All good. We don't have time. As the director of the Jewish Student Union, which is, as Samantha shared, a project of NCSY, we have a network of currently 515 clubs, extracurricular clubs, in public and private non-Jewish schools across North America. We're currently serving 20,000 plus students every year. And what we do is we create spaces. Samantha was talking a lot about spaces that are safe, that are Jewish, where teens can come in during school hours or right after school, and find community, find belonging, and find identity.
Amazing.
That
was
okay?
Good. Andrew, tell us about what you're seeing in terms of opportunity. You can also tell us about the unique program that you have.
Sure.
Well. Brett, I'll let you talk about yours too.
So as a rabbi and a youth professional, I often feel like I've got one foot in sort of ancient texts and one foot trying to keep up with today's young people. So it feels like a little bit pulled in two directions. But I feel like the real opportunity here, and I think it goes directly to something you mentioned in your intro, something I think a lot about, is teens are looking for, and I think many of us in an internet sort of fractured age are looking for belonging. And in fact, many of the things teens are looking for and the challenges they're facing, Judaism has a lot to say about. Because we've been thinking about these things for thousands of years and writing about them. And I think a real opportunity here is to help translate some of this ancient wisdom, some of these ancient practices that are edifying, that are rigorous, that create a sense of belonging and purpose and identity, translating those to a younger generation and almost like reminding them and reminding ourselves, like, hey, we have some of the answers for this, right? It may feel like a difficult and challenging and new moment. I'm not saying that all the ancient answers are a one-to-one fit to today's moment, but there's a lot of wisdom that we have an opportunity to kind of bring and refresh and translate to a new generation. Like we do have some of the answers. I think it's a real comfort that we should all walk away from. Like, we know some of the things to do, right? We know some of the ways to create belonging because it's what we've been good at for thousands of years.
I think it's such an interesting point, and it's something that's come up again and again over particularly the last 2 years is that reminder of everything feels different, but we have done some of these things before. We have answers of we know what to do when crisis, when opportunity, when belonging. So I'm curious, Andrew, I'll actually push it directly back to you. When I think about the words of this moment, I'm feeling timely and timeless. Our work is so timely. It's of this moment. Our teens at this moment are having, to use like the word that none of us want to use anymore, an unprecedented reality and moment in time. And we've been in many of these places before, in peak moments, crisis moments, inflection points for the Jewish people. So in your role, in your work with students, how are you seeing both? Are they feeling the timeliness, the timelessness? How are you helping them balance that?
Sure, thank you. So Student to Student trains Jewish teens, Jewish high schoolers, in making a story out of their identity. We train them in public speaking, in storytelling, in crafting a narrative out of their Jewish identity, turning them into kind of ambassadors, and then sending them out to area high schools to give talks about their Jewish identity. Right? So they're talking about their Jewish identity from a very personal place, right? Not with a particular political viewpoint or ideology. We want people to get to know Jews and Judaism, right? Put a face to a name. What is my life like as a Jew in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Des Moines, Iowa, or Boston, or any of the number of cities that we're running these programs. And I sometimes tell people, like, if I said to a bunch of teenagers, like, hey, do you guys want to come brush up on all the stuff you should have learned in Hebrew school? Yeah, I see some heads shaking. I know, it disappoints me too. But when we say, hey, do you want to brush up on some of the stuff you should have learned in Hebrew school so that you can go out and teach about who Jews are and what we are, like help dispel myths and stereotypes, break up the patterns that lead to anti-Semitism, teens are like, yeah, I want to do that. Right? So what's timeless is this desire for knowledge that needs to be rebooted, sometimes in a certain way, or pitched a certain way, right? But that we do desire a deeper connection to our faith and our stories and our traditions and what makes us unique and special, and that when our teens feel better equipped to talk about it, they're better equipped to be a proud Jew out in the world. And we're, as you said earlier, like minority is a question of numbers, right? We're always going to be a minority. So you might as well get good at being able to talk about it because people are going to have questions, right? They might be the only Jew that people run into. So they're going to ask you questions, and we want you to feel really good about being able to answer that. That's going to make you feel stronger and more confident in your identity as a Jew. And it's going to pay dividends now, and it's going to pay dividends for the rest of your life.
Beautiful, thank you. Brett, I'm going to kick it over to you. So you work a lot with the professionals who work with teens. Many of our amazing colleagues are in this room, and also we are representing a lot of people who aren't necessarily in this room. Can you talk to us about what Jewish teen professionals right now are looking for, what they need, and how the field can both empower and support them in this timely, timeless moment?
Absolutely, thank you. And I need to mention that there are many giants from our field sitting in this room today who have helped shape the current place that we're in. So with honor and gratitude to be able to speak to this. We're in a moment, as Samantha was saying before, where we came from COVID, and then with everything going on in Israel and in America, and it's just and it's a very tall layered cake. And our Jewish professionals for years have been the frontline resources, and it's not always the best kept secret, or it is that, like, they are some of our best and most important resources to our community, because they are the Jewish professionals and educators and engagement professionals are the people who are inspiring the now and the later. And so the questions are like, how can we be better supporting our colleagues? How can we be providing them with spaces of connection and learning and resources and support? as they are trauma stewards for their communities and have our communities on their shoulders. And many of our professionals are not trained to be able to, or effectively enough to be able to support the needs that are currently present in the ecosystem. And I would say that what are they looking for? They're looking for those opportunities for connection with one another. They want meaningful networking opportunities. They want high-level, impactful, authentic learning experiences. Many of these themes can be taken to what teens are looking for as well. And at CJP, we really have been able to hone our superpower as a convener and a connector to be able to partner with the amazing local and regional and national organizations to say, how can we work together in this moment? How can we step outside of our silos? How can we see each other and hear each other and be able to work together to dream what's next?
Beautifully said. Thank you. Devorah, you started speaking about the surge that I'm sure everyone has said the surge so many times in the last 2.5 days, but specifically about the surge of interest that you've seen in the JSU clubs. So I'm curious if you could speak to us about how you're viewing that growing demand, what you think it's coming from, what you've noticed in the field while trying to meet it, and what you're seeing there that's also applicable to the work that so many others in the space are doing.
Sure. The unprecedented surge. So
I'm gonna get a bingo card.
It's a great surge, the unprecedented good surge. So we, post October 7th, I think we were everyone in this room was sort of hit with like this. I was surprised. I expected, as I think some of us may have also, although if we looked to ancient wisdom, we would see that this is not the case. I did expect some retreating. Mm-hmm. I expected our programs to sort of fall flat, but we saw the opposite. And we don't have to guess what the teens were asking for and why they were asking, because they were telling us in the requests that they would ask for a JSU club. We have, on our website, jsu.org, you can look and you can press request a club. And we were getting, a handful a year previously. And suddenly there were 3 to 5 a week or more at certain points. And in the notes section, the teens would write the same thing, different language, but same thing. I've been dealing with antisemitism, and so I believe that it's more important than ever that we come together as a community. Or I believe it's more important than ever that I learn more about Jewish values. Or I think it's so important that we become stronger together, whatever the language is. But it was always, the impetus has been anti-Semitism in some way, shape, or form. And so I think it's so important that we learn more. And this was something that struck me because this is something that, I think many of us realized later on, that we come together because of the anti-Semitism, but we come together to become stronger Jewish people and to learn more. And they weren't asking us for more resources to handle the anti-Semitism, although we need to provide that for them. It's a huge responsibility, as Samantha was saying. We must provide the safety for them, but also they just want to belong together and come together and learn more about Judaism. And so when we were saying, like, we put out a survey, are you interested in more education around anti-Semitism? They're like, no, we want to build menorahs. Like, we love that Jewish club that you guys always do every year. It's a classic. We build menorahs out of, graham crackers and frosting, and it's so much fun, even for 16-year-olds. And they love it because it's about Jewish joy, and this is what draws us together, and this is something that we've kept in mind throughout. So although the anti-Semitism was the impetus, we're continuing to see that surge and trying to meet that demand. I'll say that, we talked about COVID for a minute here. COVID actually, it's a couple of years before October 7th, prepared us in a certain sense for breaking certain expectations and norms around the programming that we do. I think a lot of us experience this. How do we pivot now? And so I'm proud of our agility, and I'm proud to say that we were able to develop a platform which 2-3 years later was an amazing setup for the demand that we were seeing. And that is something that we call the JSU Global Campus, which is what we started during COVID. If we had a teen who wanted to continue a JSU club and we couldn't go into the schools because of the restrictions, so we were able to empower remotely the teen leaders to be able to run the clubs on their own with our support. And so now when we're getting requests in, Tulsa, Oklahoma, or, Idaho, and we don't have staff there, we're able to say, hey, anyone from Tulsa here? Sorry. We don't have staff there yet.
So exciting.
Maybe
There's
one day.
more than one person raising their hand.
That's amazing. Anyone from Idaho? So we have JSU clubs now. And we've shifted in a big way to empowering and investing in our student leadership. And that's something that started during COVID, and we were able to just hit the ground running. Now that we get a request, we don't have to say no. We can say, yes, we can help you. We could support you. You're a Jewish teen. You want Jewish community at your school, and we're here for you.
There's so much to unpack in what you said. A few things that are standing out to me. First is when I'm thinking about anti-Semitism, which again I do a lot, we all know that an identity that is shaped by being anti is A, not sustainable, and B, is not what I'll technically refer to as pass-onable. That it's the pull in that moment to say we need to figure out how to feel strong, feel empowered, feel safe when it comes to what it means to stand up to the wave of anti-Semitism we're experiencing. And if it ends with that, our young people don't necessarily have their Jewish why. So I'm hearing you say Jewish joy as a Jewish why for them. And I'll actually then expand that to Brett and then to Andrew. What do you think the students who you work with or your colleagues work with, what are they seeking when they come to you, and how do we meet what they are seeking in that deepest sense? Although I know everyone here gives great college resume, tips and accolades. What are they seeking?
So I had a chance to get that question ahead of time, and I sent it out to our JTI Peer Leadership Fellows Network. So we have a peer-to-peer engagement model in Boston, currently run by our JCC. It's in its 10th year, where we have teens reaching out to their self-selected networks of peers, and we are able to collect data from over 400 Jewish teens from throughout the community each month on a variety of topics. So what we learned last year, and also what I was able to get in preparation for today, this year, is it's more of the same. Everything is so cyclical, and teens want authentic spaces where they feel seen, heard, safe, all the important things that have been said here today. And they want opportunities to respond to the current moment. They have this yearning for agency and ownership to be able to create that change, to make that moment, to be seen, to be heard, everything that Samantha was saying. And that's the power that we have. And whether it's BBYO or Moving Traditions or Student to Student or JSU or, there are so many incredible organizations that are able to provide these spaces. And one of the superpowers that our community has is to be able to be resilient and to be flexible. And some organizations are better at that than others. But to be able to have an opportunity to say, what are you looking for, and how can we get the adults out of the way and be able to give you the space to be able to do what you want to do and to be able to create what you want to create. And so over the course of the pandemic and till today, we really have done a large pivot in Boston, and we've taken the moments as they arise to say, instead of this synagogue and this organization and this agency working on their own islands, how do we actually come together, whether it's in a Zoom room or at the JCC or in a synagogue social hall, have a conversation, include teen leadership, at the table as part of the decision making and be able to say, how as a community are we able to take steps forward in the direction that you all as teens would like. So mental health and wellness, combating anti-Semitism, understanding and navigating the complex and nuanced conversations around Israel and Palestine. How do I navigate the world as a teen in 2025, soon to be 2026? It's ever changing. And we have a lot of that already in our toolkits. We just have to see it and access it.
Beautiful. Thank you. Andrew, what are teens looking for? What are they
Well,
seeking?
first I have to shout out my hometown, the place of my birth, Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Now
Doesn't
has
oft-
a JSU club.
Doesn't often show up a lot in these circles, but was born and raised.
Mazel.
Thank you. It was a great place to grow up. Not a ton of Jews, but some really good Jews. I want to uplift something Brett said that we're seeing a lot of. That teens are navigating a complex world, and we know the drop off in Jewish education after bar mitzvah is enormous, especially in the non-Orthodox world. Right? So there's a real danger, I think, is not an understatement, to say to sending kids out into that complex world with a very pediatric Judaism. Right? If your Jewish knowledge is, the animals going on the ark and songs about Jonah, like that's not enough for this complex world. So I think teens really are, young people all, and we all should be, but especially in our field, looking for a rigorous and edifying Judaism. And we owe it to them to equip them with a Judaism that has what to say about a complex world, that isn't quick and easy answers, because that's not our tradition. Our tradition is long and challenging arguments, treating other sides with respect. Right? So can we engage with that nuance? Can we teach that nuance and share that nuance with kids? And Samantha, part of your question was asking, what are people looking for in our particular program? I think a lot of kids do come to our program with a desire to combat anti-Semitism because they had some incident in their school and they want to do something about it, right? This program, being a Jewish ambassador in area high schools, really, it feels very immediate, right? I am doing something about anti-Semitism. Why they stay, why they return, is the question you didn't ask, but that I would continue to ask, is because they see the power of building these bridges of understanding, and they feel the confidence. They gain the confidence by talking about it and asking about it, right? A lot of people asked us, especially after October 7th, like, oh my gosh, did your presentations change? Did the questions you're getting change a lot? Like, is it all about the conflict? And the answer was really no. For the most part, people, teens in these classrooms are not super focused on the conflict. They're not super focused on global affairs at all. A very small minority are hyper-focused, but let's keep our eye on the big picture. They're asking kind of the standard questions about Jews, like, do you believe in Jesus? Do you believe in heaven and hell? If you don't believe in hell, why not just sin all the time? And the other one we hear a lot, which speaks to our age, is, would you date someone not Jewish? Especially if the presenters are very handsome. Look, it's high school, right? They're thinking about the test that's coming up, who they're going to take to homecoming, the football game, right? Like, they're curious, but we have to kind of prompt that curiosity. And I love seeing the faces of our presenters really light up when they're like, oh, I can answer these questions. I can talk about what Shabbat looks like in my house, what the high holidays look in my house, what our dietary practices are, and that they've thought about why. So, giving an age-appropriate Judaism that's going to prepare them to face the complexities of the world, not shy away from them, is the gift that we have to give, and I think the one that people find the most edifying.
Something that I've always admired, and we've talked about this before, about your program in particular, is that it empowers young people to own their own Jewish stories right now, and to not feel like I need to wait until I've achieved some, whether it's level of knowledge or age or life experience, that right now they can own that story and be a representative, and they feel confident in doing that, going back to what is that confident core of self. It also just has me thinking about, wow, what are, for each of us, what comes up as the hard questions of, what does it mean to be a good person if hell isn't part of your vernacular? It's like, oh, I can talk about anti-Semitism a lot easier than that. Something else that's coming up for me, our colleagues at Springtide, who I quoted earlier, put forward the number of 7 as the ideal number of non-parent adult role models that a young person should have in their lives in order to thrive, in order to be in a confident, empowered state of being. And I often think about it in terms of the Jewish community because we have so much opportunity to create that 7. And to be, what I'll say is, generous with our young people in that sense, having worked in spaces, I'm sure not that are represented here whatsoever, where it's much more so, well, those are my teens. You can't have them. And the concept of, well, are they really anyone's teens? Because I know exactly how many kids were in your B'nai Mitzvah class, and I know how many of them are in your confirmation class. And this is not about congregational ed in particular. I could give any paradigm. But what happens when the community is set up in a way that they've been empowered by student to student? They feel comfortable because of the JSU club in their own school and are going to other people's schools, and they have all of the other community resources of empowered youth movements that support them, and congregational ed, and Israel trips, and we can actually provide that 7 for that holistic, well-rounded, and empowered young person. And I'm just so inspired to work with all of you towards that end. So I'm going to ask, I think, one more question right now of everyone, and then I'll open it up to the group and perhaps reserve time for myself a little bit more. So we're representing a lot of different communities. Apparently even Tulsa is here. What should a community be thinking about when it comes to community-wide, exploring, empowering, upping their game when it comes to the Jewish teen experience in their own space? Dvar, do you want to start?
Sure. So it's an interesting space to be in because our subject matter experts are between 12 and 18 years old. So I think that if we're exploring programs, if we're thinking about teens, we need to ask the teens what they want. It's critical. And we're just coming off our JSU, our annual JSU Teen Leadership Conference. We call it the JSU President's Conference because I'm told it sounds cooler. And we have 300 teen leaders in the room. And if there's any word that comes to mind, it's hope after we leave this conference that we're positioned for a bright, connected, vibrant Jewish future. There's nothing like it. And we take it very seriously. The teen, when we talk about teens today, I don't think it's a new thing that teens need a sense of co-creating. I think we all want to be involved in something bigger than ourselves. And I think maybe these teen leaders are one of the 7 that impact others. And so I think we've taken teen leadership and teen empowerment very seriously over the past few years. They know best what's needed. And they'll tell you. And so we have a student executive board. They plan the programs. They design parts of the conference. They know what's out there. They know what's needed. So I would suggest anyone who's thinking about new programs, what the needs are, ask the teens. They'll tell you. And also, try to. We talk a lot about silos, but look around at what's out there first. See how we can create better partnerships and work together, break down those silos and those bridges before looking to, maybe there is a need for something new, or maybe we can work with an existing infrastructures to work together on doing that.
Thank you. Brett, what about you?
I'm going to answer in a couple ways. One is through the incredible resources and partnerships that Be Well at JFNA has helped to bring to communities across the country. We have brought teen mental health first aid to Boston, and one of the critical components of that curriculum is asking the teens who is on your team, TEAM. So much like the who's in the 7, it's not necessarily filling those 7 slots, but it's empowering teens to identify in the many circles that they're engaged in where their supportive, trusted adults can be who can provide them the support that they need. I'll also say a hot take. It's not about programs. It's about people. And we're so quick to gravitate towards the program because it's concrete and it's flashy and it might address a moment, but it's about the relationships that we have with one another, and it's how people can find opportunities for deeper and meaningful connection. So whether that is at a program or if it's in a community, or it takes many different forms. And then I'll finally wrap up with saying that engagement is really a continuum. There's not a one-size-fits-all approach to how we engage our teens or our people in our communities. And so not everybody has to be a leader. Not everybody has to be at a certain prescribed stage or entry point. We need to think about handoffs and communication between communities and organizations. We need to be thinking about how, like you said, Samantha, like they're not our teens, they're our teens, and how can we really view that team mentality as a community and work together in a coordinated, intentional way.
Beautiful. Thank you.
That's amen to all of that. I want to talk about two things. One is the village, and the other is the investment. One of the only decent parenting books I've read so far is Hunt, Gather, Parent by Michaeline Duclaff. Anybody Hunt, Gather, Parent? Okay, highly recommend it if you have children or work with children or know children. She had a really rowdy toddler that was just like totally unhinged toddler she didn't know what to do with. And she was an NPR science reporter, and in one of her trips, her babysitting fell through. She took her toddler to visit this remote village in Mexico and realized that all the people in the village kind of helped with her kid and were amazing parents. And she's like, there's something here. Like, there's wisdom here that we are missing in, I think she's from suburban New York. So that started her on a worldwide quest. She started taking her toddler to visit indigenous tribes all over the world and write about their parenting styles. It's an incredible read. And one of the terms she comes up with and talks a lot about is this idea of allo-parent, right? Like an other parent, right? It's not your parent, but it's another adult that you can go to and who knows you and that you trust. That's the idea of a village, right? That's how humans have lived for most of the time we've been humans. What we think is normal, of my little nuclear family living in our house, my in-laws living in their house, my sister-in-law in their house, that's pretty modern. And we lost something important when we moved to that model. I know this because I lived with my in-laws for 8 months while my house was under construction, and I don't tell them, they're not here. I was a little nervous, not gonna lie, but it was wonderful. They're retired. My mother-in-law would make dinner. The fridge was always full. My kids would wake up in the morning and run to their grandparents' room instead of my room. It's like, you know what? I would happily trade a little bit of privacy for a wider village. And I think especially in a really fractured, like internet-powered fractured time, we need that village and our teens need that village so much. That village is so important. So when Brett's talking about investing in people, not programs, that is critical. Which leads me to my second point, which is about investment. Especially in this room and in this crowd, like finding those good people, keeping them, retaining them, growing them in this work takes investment, right? And I would urge all of us to think more about investing in the people doing this youth engagement work in our communities, right? It's not a fun side project. It's not like a cutesy thing that you just trot out once a year to donors. But look at all these happy Jewish teens, give us money. You're not just investing in the Jewish future, you're investing in the Jewish now. Right? This is one of the things teens tell us when they get invited to speak at things like this. And don't trot us out as just like, oh, look at the leaders these kids could become one day. No, they're doing the work and they're leading and they're building communities of identity and meaning and engagement right now. And they need our help. They need our investment. Right? I'm talking about real dollars going towards youth professionals who are routinely underpaid, overworked. They're on the front lines of teen mental health, of anxiety. Right? When we train new coordinators for our program, a lot of times they're coming from JCRCs or federations. They're like, well, I'm not really a youth professional. It's like, are you driving teens around? Are you buying 20 pizzas at a time? I got news for you, Jack. You are a youth professional. And that means you have some responsibilities, right? To care for these people, to care for these young people, and to be prepared to help them find all the resources they need. And when a teen finds a trusted adult, and I know that some of you had that trusted adult when you were younger because you raised your hands earlier, it's a really powerful thing. It's a relationship that can last a lifetime, that's edifying on both sides. So I would encourage all of us to think about how can we invest in supporting the people doing that work to do it better and to retain them and keep them longer.
Beautiful, beautifully said. All right, I'm gonna turn to everyone here. I now get to stand up, see if people have questions. I'm coming over, okay? That's when I'm gonna get my steps in for the day. It's a multitasking panel act. You're welcome to. Come join me on my journey.
Hi, thank you so much for your really soundingly amazing work. My name's Abigail Tambor. I tend to work in more, on a volunteer basis, in more sort of brick and mortar establishment educational spaces, as opposed to, I guess, what you guys would be sort of outside of those in addition to. And I'm wondering how the day schools and the synagogues and the more established spaces for the teens can learn from what you are doing, because it seems to me oftentimes you're supplementing, you're addressing a lack, a missing element. Sometimes the kids don't have the more brick and mortar, but sometimes they do. I mean, they are in community already. So it's how can we learn from what you're seeing, because some things I think we're clearly doing wrong. And maybe it's not entirely wrong, but it's something is not quite right. One example that I think of is, how people tend to look for spirituality outside of Judaism, right? They go for yoga, they go for Jew boots, they go for things like that. That, I think, is a lack. That is something we've been doing wrong. And so I think now with your work, which is so well thought out and well done, I feel like we should be learning what we need to be addressing sooner for kids who are much more in the quote-unquote system.
Thank you. Anyone want to go first?
Can I talk a little bit about, I came from a movement background. I see a synagogue has always been many things. There you are. A synagogue has always been many things, right? It's got three different, it's a house of gathering, a house of prayer, a house of learning. I see a synagogue today has to be a connector to all these other things in the community, right? You are often the central hub of Jewish belonging. And when we can get beyond, I think, who was it that spoke about sort of my teens, your teens, like go get your own teens, right?
Just waving here in the corner.
When we can get beyond that attitude, when we can see, oh, I'm a synagogue in a city with tons of different resources, and I want my kids to have the opportunity to engage with all of them, and know that they're not like leaving my brick and mortar place, right? They're gaining skills elsewhere that they're going to bring back here, right? So we're always very conscious to position ourselves as a complementary, right? We're like the public-facing side of whatever the work you're doing in BBYO or NCSY or your synagogue or your Madrichim program, whatever it is. If we can all work together and see that and offer like a wider menu, I think we'll all be better off.
Please.
I'll just add to that. Third month on the job, I'm a recovering synagogue professional, and I loved it. I did it for 14 years, and third month on the job, I stumbled into a community organizing training that our JCRC was hosting at our synagogue. It fundamentally reshaped anything that I thought about my job. And it's all about the coffee conversation. And it's something that we know about and has evolved over the years, like through Hillel International and all areas of our field. But especially in day schools and synagogues and some of those like established communities, like it's the same conversation we were just having. Like people want to be seen and heard, and so to ask a teen like, can I take you out for ice cream or froyo, or like can we go to the cafeteria and like find 20 minutes and let's talk about your Jewish journey. And like, I'm not going to sell you on a list of programs. I'm going to say, who are you? Where are you? What do you like to do? Based on your interests, how can we help connect you to your Jewish community in the ways to which you want to be? Like that's the conversation we need to be having more, and that's the training that we need to be providing our professionals to be able to effectively do. So it's, again, that multi-layer approach.
I also would just say from over here, I'm moving around now. It's not creepy. So much of what's being said here comes from having an abundance mindset when it comes to what the Jewish community can offer and to our young people. I think we are equipped sometimes to come with a scarcity mindset of, I have 20 minutes with that kid, I know what I need to sell them on, because we're all trying to meet numbers for something. If anyone wants to talk about the Jewish Futures Conference, that's what I am currently meeting numbers on. We all have our thing, but when we come with an abundance mindset is when we can look at that person and say, I want to talk about you, and the rest will come from those conversations. Devor, did you want to comment? And then I'll jump to my next question.
Yeah, I don't know if this is like a solution, but I think our jobs are a little easier because I think it's easy to get complacent with the abundance, with that mindset of like, they're in a Jewish day school, they're in a synagogue, they're here. But when we think about JSU clubs and we have 20 minutes for effective anything educational, it's in a way it's easier for us because we're thinking very specifically about that scarcity mindset. We do work, I think, you were saying this as well. We collaborate with synagogues, with day schools. We see it as JSU as a access point for many other programs. And so it's not this program, that program, like Brett was saying. We definitely collaborate together. But again, it's much easier for us because there's this, we call it low barrier to entry, right? Like we're in the school, there's, free food. It's it's fun. There's no agenda really. And so it's much easier to access those teens. I think in the other piece, I know I said this before, but leadership is a big piece. And I think the more that we can provide leadership roles in the synagogues, if that already exists, but maybe bulking up the program a little bit, or in the day schools, I think we've seen that teens who take on the leadership positions and really grow into those are more likely to stay connected because we all want to co-create.
There's so many hands. It's so exciting. If you've made eye contact with me and I've nodded, I'm coming. And if not, they're all staying. They're not allowed to leave. So we're done.
I have so many thoughts. First of all, thank you all for this. As a former yeshiva student, gone to public school, I think there are places and spaces for everybody. I know that my Jewish connection comes from lots of different sources, including the day school, including being the Shabbat keeping kid in high school, in a public school, and my history. So there's so many sources in so many ways. It's just being with the individual, as you have each said. Something else that you have all mentioned was mental health and the role of your different institutions dealing with the mental health needs of the students you meet with. And I'm curious in what ways your organizations incorporate or train or work within the communities to appropriately facilitate either referrals or programming to support Jewish teens, especially now, given both the connection they're seeking and finding within these groups, but also additional resources they might need.
Thank you.
I'll grab that one. So we're incredibly blessed in Boston to have an extraordinary caring and social justice team at CJP who has worked with our partners throughout the community at Jewish Family and Children's Service and JFS Metro West and Gateways, and there's a whole lineup of organizations that each have filled a very particular need in the mental health and wellness sphere, and we really approached it in a number of different ways, but specifically working with teens. When I joined CJP 5 years ago and Jewish Teen Initiative came in, my first conversation was with our AVP of Caring, and I said, how do we work together? Mental health is already part of my agenda. How do we teach me, like, what are you doing, and how can we have one shared agenda? And through that, I would say we have redefined the way that services are available for teens in the greater Boston community. It continues to ebb and flow, unfortunately, due to funding shifts, external challenges, different things in the broader ecosystem. But I'd say that our professionals are talking to each other more than they ever have in that area. We have partnered with Be Well, and JFNCS launched a Greater Boston Resiliency Roundtable. So quarterly, we're bringing together professionals from across the field. Some are individual practitioners, some are Jewish educators, clergy, day school people, like across the board, to be able to talk about, like, how do we move the needle in this area. I'd say that CJP has funded a referral service through our community partners and in partnership with them, so people are able to understand and know about the resources that are available to them in a broader way than before. And we partnered with Bamidbar to launch a peer wellness cohort of our Peer Leadership Fellows program. So we're training teens directly to be resources for their peers to better understand mental health and wellness for themselves and be able to reduce stigma in the community.
I would also just jump in, and I promise I'd only be a little infomercially in all the hats that I'm wearing, but the Jewish Education Project offers for anyone, no matter where you're coming from, youth mental health first aid trainings with a Jewish tie-in to make sure that they're relevant for the dilemmas and challenges facing our professionals, our teens, our communities. And so I'm also happy to share info about that afterwards. I want to make sure we have time for as many questions as possible, so if we're good, I'm going to hand over here.
Hi, David Brown from Chicago, and I am a product of BBYO. Probably, how many of you are BBYO teens or, okay, few. We also have the CEO of BBYO over here, Matt Grossman. I will just give you, and maybe I'm a little bit biased, I've been involved with BBYO both as a teen and now as an adult. It's one of those few places in Jewish life that's really working today, from my point of view, and especially in the teen arena. The International Convention this year is in Philadelphia. It's in mid-February. Any of you interested as an adult, they have a 24-hour stakeholder program as part of that. The IC sold out with 3,500 participants in 8 minutes. 8 minutes. Teens, being led by teens is critically important. The international board of BBYO is led by the Nasia, who's from Barcelona, yet last year from Berlin. Truly an international movement with this year probably over 60 or 65 countries involved in participating in IC. And so back to teen engagement and what's working today, teens being led by teens in their local chapters in those regions, and then on the international level, together with combating mental health issues, Jewish education, and just Jewish engagement. And when I traveled the country, I was the vice chair of the Jewish Federation's North America until June. I see Jewish teens that now grow up to be Jewish leaders all over our country. And so from my point of view, it's one of the best investments that we in the Jewish community have been making and will continue to make, and it helps address a lot of these important issues.
Thank you.
I'll see you there. I'm leading a intensive on storytelling and combating anti-Semitism, so I'm thrilled to be it, and yeah, couldn't agree more.
Hi, I'm Liz. Grew up in Tulsa.
Woo!
Was in
Oklahoma.
BBYO.
All right.
Now in Salt Lake City as the associate director of our federation, and we oversee Hillel. And BBYO. We just brought back BBYO and have a lot of success with it already. Devorah, you said, kids signed up on on the website because they're looking for peoplehood, they're dealing with anti-Semitism, etc. But when they come to an activity, they want to make menorahs out of graham crackers. How do we get them to go back to those original topics in a way that is student-led versus us putting that on them? Because their parents desperately want them to have anti-Semitism education, Israel education, mental health education. Thanks.
It's an amazing question. We also have a JSU club in Salt Lake City, so and Tulsa. So I mentioned this briefly, but JSU is an access point. We have strong partnerships with BBYO, for example. Thank you for bringing that up. I've been to IC a couple of years now. It's incredible. A lot of our teens are involved with others. We see ourselves as a tent and an access point for further engagement. I mentioned the clubs are in school. We have maybe 40 minutes total, which means 20 minutes content. There's always an educational message, but we recognize that our ability to deliver high-level content and nuanced discussions around topics like anti-Semitism or Israel advocacy, things that are definitely on the teens' minds, is very challenging in that space. We have some clubs with 100 to 200 people coming in and out. And so that forum to us is an engagement point where our hope is that they continue to come through our programming or have access to additional Jewish programming, whatever works for them. It's people first, so whatever is best for that teen. And so we do offer outside of school programs as well. And also it's going to depend, something on the outside of school programs. So we do have programs that are going to be a little bit deeper in Jewish content or just general content, where it's more of a forum for discussions around topics of interest. We have, when I say access points, I also mean that it's not just for the teens, the 20,000 teens, it's a multiplier. We have parents, we do parent engagement programs, partner with some incredible organizations. We work with siblings, the whole family, the faculty of the school. So it's more of that point of connection for deeper engagement. So about 25% of our students will come to programs such as Latte and Learning, which is it's a smaller group discussion. I see some nods, maybe some are familiar with it. We have Shabbat dinners, we have Shabbatons, we have conventions and leadership programs. The club itself is generally lighter on the content, but always with an educational message. Previous to my work now, I was working in Silicon Valley. I have a alum here, which is great. And I did have a club where it was a smaller group, and they were interested in, again, teen first, they were interested in doing deep dives into like real Jewish sources, and we would have debates around literally any topic, and I would bring in like heavy, like text, like real text-based study, and we had 10 people in that room, and every single week, and it was like an incredible, deep, intensive learning. But for the most part, educational message, and then we continue it beyond the club or a connection to something else.
There's no shortage of Jewish anxiety out there right now. If I could put one more book on your book list, it would be The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. A bunch of you are nodding. It was a very popular topic in my family, like a neighborhood group chat. But there's a big delta in that anxiety between teens and their parents. And the parent question came from over here, right? Just like you, when I'm out talking about my program, parents first questions are all about security. What are our security procedures? Is it safe? Have there been disruptions and protests in classrooms? Like, is my kid gonna be safe? Which is understandable, right? We're parents, we wanna protect our kids. But that anxiety is at such a high level that I worry that it is contagious, because the questions we're hearing from teens are totally different. Their questions are like, do I have to dress up for this? And like, do I have to go talk to my own school? Can I give out my Instagram handle? Like, those are the kinds of questions teens are asking. So I worry when parents are so hyper-focused on the anti-Semitism issues, which are real, right? I don't want to downplay those issues, right? And we do have to think a lot about our security procedures and where we're going and where we're taking them. But all that to the teens is in the background, right? Because their concerns are about whether they have to tuck their shirt in or not.
Which is highly developmentally appropriate
Right.
for that to be the main focus area.
So I would caution a little bit of going too far down that rabbit hole of anxiety and fear, because when we solely focus on that, it can prevent us from developing the proud, the joy, the edifying parts of our Jewish identity that we deserve and that especially our teens deserve.
So speaking of Jewish anxiety, I just want everyone to have an insight into my state of being right now, where I am an educator. There were so many hands up, and I am compelled to meet every learner and every question. This is very uncomfortable for me. And I'm also a rule follower who was told that I had a time to keep to. So what I can commit to, none of these people are leaving the stage. Please come ask your questions, because this was very difficult for me to ever cut off a question conversation. It's not comfy. I get to ask the last one, though, because that is the prerogative of a loud person with a microphone. One sentence about what success looks like for you with our teens, with your work, with the Jewish community, with one outstanding teen. What are you hoping for? What does success look like? And if it helps, because I just threw that at you, I can go first if that's compelling. Success for me right now is that we transform our Jewish community so that every new educational opportunity or engagement opportunity is not an intervention. That it doesn't feel like we're grasping after each drop-off from early childhood, from B'nai Mitzvah, from post-peak event engagement, that we create a continuum where we're working together, we're speaking with each other, and that the teen session and the early childhood session are not disparate conversations, but are part of that real, when we walk the talk, of lifelong arc of Jewish learning. And creating that is going to be success for me. Go forth.
Success for me is knowing that when there is a budget cut, the teen program is not the first on the chopping block. The funding cycles and environment right now around teen engagement is so fragile, and to be able to envision a thriving Jewish future, we need thriving Jewish teens, and we need to invest in these programs and these people in a very different way than is currently happening. And so,
similar to what Samantha's saying, but less on the organizational level, but for the teens, that they continue their Jewish journey seamlessly onto the whatever that stage is, because each stage is important. We work with teens, so that's what we're focused on, but that they're continuing to remain connected, and thriving is a great word.
I see success in two levels. One is at the professional level, when quality Jewish professionals want to work in the teen spaces and want to continue working in the teen spaces, rather than these jobs being seen as an entry level or a starter position, that these jobs are taken as seriously by the Jewish community as we say we take our Jewish future. That's one level of success. The other is very micro, and the way I describe our program all the time is I know that our program is successful and working well when I am sitting quietly in the back and the teens are up on stage running the show. And it takes very little intervention, very little speaking from me. I know we're doing our job when I and the other adults in this program sit quietly in the back and the teens take center stage, as they should.
Beautifully said. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Please ask your questions, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Samantha.
It's done. It's over. I'm well, thanks.
A treat.
Yay, thank you so much.
you're amazing.
Sorry. Oh, I know, really got screwed in that.